The simulation paradox. Picture yourself lying in a quiet room, the hum of the world fading into a gentle background rhythm. The light from a nearby lamp flickers once, then steadies soft, steady, deliberate. For a brief moment, something about it feels too perfect, almost intentional, as if the world itself were a design, not a coincidence. This is where the simulation paradox begins, the haunting question of whether the reality you live in might be an elaborate creation, a simulation crafted by intelligence beyond your understanding. Imagine this. Somewhere far beyond your stars, there exists a civilization so advanced that they can recreate entire worlds in code, worlds with oceans that shimmer, wines that carry scent, people who laugh, dream, and feel. Every leaf, every drop of rain, every heartbeat, a line of elegant programming. In that case, how could anyone inside such a world ever know they were simulated? Think about the world around you, how memories blend and time flows seamlessly. Your phone's clock ticks in perfect rhythm with every sunrise. The laws of physics never stutter, never glitch. Even your dreams feel bound by logic when you're in them. Could that be evidence of a perfectly maintained system rather than proof of its reality? The simulation paradox was popularized by philosopher Nick Bostrom, who suggested something extraordinary. If advanced civilizations ever gain the power to simulate conscious beings, and if they choose to run even a few of those simulations, then statistically, it's far more likely that we are the simulated ones, not the original. After all, for every one real world, there could be billions of simulations built upon it. But here's the twist, does it really matter? If your laughter feels real, if pain still hurts, if love still moves you, would it change anything to know that somewhere, someone might have written the code that governs it? The paradox lies in how reality doesn't need to be original to feel true. A simulated sunrise still warms your skin. A digital tear still carries emotion. Think about dreams, how they create entire worlds from nothing but imagination. You've walked through cities that don't exist, spoken to people who vanish when you wake. Yet while dreaming, those moments are everything. Perhaps consciousness itself is the ultimate simulation, one so vivid, so immersive, that even awareness of it doesn't set you free from believing it's real. But here, where the paradox deepens, if life is simulated, who or what runs it? A higher intelligence, our future selves, or perhaps consciousness loops upon itself, simulating endlessly, layer upon layer, each version unaware of the one beneath. Every thought could be a ripple in an infinite sea of nested realities, dreams inside dreams, programs within programs. And yet, in this infinite recursion of possibilities, there's something comforting. Whether real or simulated, the experience of living, of noticing, of wondering remains your own. Existence, it seems, is self-validating. It feels real because you are the one feeling it. As you drift closer to sleep, let that idea settle softly. Whether this world is made of atoms or algorithms, its beauty remains unchanged. The sound of your breath, the pulse of your heart, the quiet rhythm of your thoughts, all are proof of a kind of life, simulated or not. Because perhaps what makes something real isn't its origin, but the meaning you give it. And if reality itself can be questioned, what about the very act of dreaming? If waking life can feel constructed, could dreams be the truest reality of all? That's the mystery our next paradox begins to unravel. The infinite dream paradox. Imagine you wake up tomorrow, but the world feels slightly off. The colors are a shade too soft, the air carrying a faint echo that shouldn't exist. You go about your morning, everything normal enough to believe it's real, until suddenly, you blink and wake up again. This time you're sure you're awake, until once more something shifts. This is the infinite dream paradox, the strange possibility that you might never truly wake up, because each awakening could only be another layer of the same vast dream. We've all had dreams so vivid that they linger in our memory for days, dreams that feel lived, not imagined. You can recall the faces, the places, even the smell of the air. In that moment, your mind accepts it all as real. Only when you wake do you realize how convincing the illusion was. But what if that realization, that moment of waking up, is itself part of another dream? Philosophers have wondered about this for centuries. Zhuangzi, the ancient Chinese thinker, once wrote about dreaming he was a butterfly fluttering freely through the air. When he awoke, he couldn't tell if he had dreamed he was a butterfly, or if the butterfly was now dreaming it was Zhuangzi. So where does the dream end and waking begin? Science tells us that dreams are the mind's way of reorganizing reality, compressing, replaying, reshaping the day's experience. But in a deeper sense, dreams may reveal how thin the boundary between perception and imagination really is. If your brain can build entire worlds while you sleep, filled with sound, texture, taste, even emotion, how do you know it's not doing the same right now? Think about déjà vu, that eerie feeling that you've lived this exact moment before. Could that be a small crack in the illusion, a brief overlap between dream layers? Or those moments where you wake but can't move, caught between sleep and consciousness, your mind aware, your body still frozen inside the rules of another world? The infinite dream paradox forces us to ask, what if consciousness never truly wakes up? What if life and dream are simply different frequencies of the same field of awareness, one long, continuous experience that only feels divided by sleep? Maybe every time you close your eyes, you're not escaping reality, you're shifting realities, drifting into another version of yourself, one that lives a parallel story for a few fleeting hours. And yet, here's the comfort hidden within the paradox. If the dream never truly ends, then perhaps every goodbye, every missed chance, every fleeting moment of beauty is never really lost. Somewhere in some quiet corner of an endless dream, it continues looping softly, alive forever. So as you lie here tonight, let that thought loosen your grip on what's real. Don't fight to define the edges of waking and sleep. Let them blur. Let them merge. Perhaps it's not about escaping the dream, but about realizing that all of it, the waking, the dreaming, the wondering, is part of one infinite, ongoing awareness. And if even our sense of awake can dissolve so easily, then who is the one experiencing it? Who dreams the dream and who watches the dreamer? That's where our next paradox begins to unfold. The identity paradox. Picture yourself standing before a mirror in the dim light of early morning. You see your reflection, familiar, certain, and yet something in it feels quietly mysterious. You blink, the reflection blinks back, and for a moment you wonder, who exactly is the person staring at you? This is the identity paradox, the riddle of what it truly means to be you. Every 7 to 10 years, nearly every cell in your body is replaced. The skin you touch, the hair you comb, even the bones beneath your surface, they are not the same as those you were born with. The child you once were has vanished, molecule by molecule. And yet you say, I am the same person. But are you? If your physical matter has changed, what remains constant? Is it memory, the thread that ties your past selves to your present? Or is it something more elusive, a feeling of continuity, a story your mind tells to make sense of its own existence? Think about the memories that shape your sense of self. They are fragments, moments replayed, rewritten, reimagined. The mind edits them constantly, smoothing edges, coloring gaps, bending facts until they fit the narrative of who you believe you are. Memory is not a photograph, it's a painting, touched up over time. So if the memory changes and the body renews, what truly anchors your identity? Perhaps identity is not a fixed object but a current, something that flows, adapts, evolves. You are not a single unchanging self but a collection of selves, each one responding to time, circumstance, emotion, and choice. You are your 10-year-old self, your 20-year-old self, your future self, all coexisting in the same vast continuum. Consider how different you are depending on who you're with. Around family, you play one role. With friends, another. In solitude, you become quieter, more reflective. Each version feels authentic in the moment, and yet none alone defines the whole of you. Identity may be less like a solid sculpture and more like a flame. A flame has form, color, and motion, but it's never made of the same particles for more than a moment. It persists not by staying the same, but by constantly changing. You, too, are continuity through transformation, a story written in motion. Philosophers have wrestled with this for centuries. John Locke argued that memory forms the self, but what happens when memory fades? Is a person with no memory still the same person they once were? Buddhism offers a softer lens, that the self is an illusion, a useful fiction we cling to in order to navigate a changing world. This paradox gently whispers, maybe there's no single, permanent you to hold onto, and maybe that's not a loss but a liberation. Because if the self is fluid, then you are free to change without contradiction. You are not trapped by your past. You are not the mistakes you made or the names you were given. You are the ongoing act of becoming, a self rewritten with every breath. As you drift toward sleep tonight, let that realization be comforting. You don't need to cling to who you've been. You can release old versions of yourself with gratitude, like setting ships adrift on a calm sea. What remains is awareness, the quiet witness beneath all identities. And if there is something beyond the shifting masks of self, something that sees, that watches all the versions of you come and go, who, then, is that observer? That's where our next paradox begins, the one that asks not who you are, but who's doing the seeing at all. The paradox of the observer. Picture yourself sitting quietly in a room. There's a candle on the table before you, its small flame dances in a rhythm all its own. The light flickers, shadows stretch across the walls, and you watch. You're not doing anything, not speaking or moving, just watching. For a moment it seems simple. There's you, the observer, and there's the candle, the observed. Two separate things. But then something subtle begins to stir beneath that simplicity. The more you focus on the flame, the more the boundary between you and it starts to blur. You notice the sound of your own breathing. The warmth of the light touches your skin. The rhythm of your heart syncs unconsciously with the flicker. Is there really a sharp line between observer and observed? Or are they both part of a single, flowing experience? This is the paradox of the observer, a puzzle that sits quietly at the center of consciousness. It asks, can you ever look at the world without in some way changing it? And when you do look, what exactly are you seeing, reality as it is, or reality as your mind constructs it? In quantum physics, this question isn't just poetic, it's fundamental. At the smallest scales, particles don't behave like fixed things until they're measured or observed. The act of observing seems to collapse their possibilities into one outcome. Before that, they exist in a shimmering field of uncertainty, both here and there, both this and that. In other words, observation doesn't just record reality, it helps create it. Now consider this on a human level. When you look at yourself, when you try to see who you are, do you capture something objective, or do you shape yourself through the act of seeing? Every time you introspect, you alter the very thing you're trying to observe. You name feelings that were wordless. You assign meanings to experiences that once just were. Awareness changes the aware. Think of someone who becomes self-conscious. The moment they notice they're being watched, their behavior shifts. The natural becomes deliberate. Observation introduces distortion. The same applies inwardly. The more you analyze your happiness, the more it slips from spontaneity into performance. But here's the deeper twist. If every act of observation changes what's being observed, can there ever be a truly neutral observer? If awareness is always coloring reality, then are we ever seeing the world as it truly is? Or are we only ever seeing the world as filtered through the lens of our own consciousness? This paradox dissolves the neat division between you and everything else. The world you experience isn't separate from you, it arises through you. Your mind isn't a camera capturing an independent universe, it's part of the same unfolding fabric. In meditation, there's a practice of noticing the observer itself, turning attention back toward the one who's aware. When you do this, something strange happens. You can see thoughts arise and fade, sensations come and go, emotions drift through. But the more you look for the watcher, the harder it becomes to find. Like trying to see your own eyes without a mirror, the observer vanishes into observation itself. And that's the quiet beauty of this paradox. Perhaps there is no separate observer at all, only observation. Only experience happens endlessly. You and the world inseparable. The watcher and the watched, one and the same. As you rest tonight, let that dissolve any remaining tension. You don't need to define where you end and the world begins. The candle, the air, the heartbeat, the warmth of your blanket, all part of the same seamless awareness unfolding in this very moment. But if the act of seeing shapes reality, what happens when the scene itself knows everything? When no observation is hidden, when every thought, every secret, every truth is laid bare? That question leads us straight into the next mystery, the Omniscience Paradox. The Omniscience Paradox. Picture yourself standing beneath a sky filled with stars, a vast, silent map of light stretching endlessly in every direction. Each point above you burns with history, distance, and mystery. Now imagine for a moment that you could know it all. Every star's age, every planet's orbit, every law that keeps the cosmos in motion. Every secret, every hidden truth, all of it, revealed at once. At first, the idea feels intoxicating. To know everything, what comfort that might bring. No uncertainty, no fear of the unknown. Every question answered. Every mystery solved. A universe of pure, complete understanding. But pause there. If you truly knew everything, what would curiosity mean? What would discovery feel like? Could joy, surprise, or wonder still exist in a mind that already contains all possible knowledge? This is the Omniscience Paradox, the riddle that asks whether perfect knowledge might also mean perfect emptiness. Because to know everything is to end the story before it begins. If every question is already answered, every outcome already known, what reason would remain to act, to explore, to be? The very essence of life, its movement, its learning, its constant unfolding, depends on not knowing. Think of reading your favorite novel again, but this time knowing every word, every twist, every ending. The pleasure fades. The tension that gives meaning to the story disappears. Life, too, draws its richness from uncertainty, from the delicate dance between ignorance and insight. Even philosophers have struggled with this paradox for centuries. If a God or consciousness exists that knows everything, every past, present, and future, then does free will still exist? Can choice mean anything if the outcome is already known? One possible answer is that omniscience and freedom aren't opposites but complements, that complete knowledge might still allow infinite play. Imagine a musician who knows every note, every chord, every melody possible, yet still finds new beauty in how those notes can be combined. The knowledge doesn't kill creation, it gives it context. Still, there's a haunting beauty in our own limitations. To not know is to remain open. To wonder is to be alive. Curiosity is the pulse of consciousness, the question mark that keeps the heart beating. The paradox whispers something both humbling and tender. Maybe ignorance isn't a flaw but a gift, because not knowing allows us to seek, to imagine, to dream. It allows all. It allows faith. Think of the night sky again. The stars don't demand to be understood, they simply are. You gaze at them not because you can name them all, but because you can't. Their beauty lies in their mystery. And perhaps at the quiet center of existence, even an all-knowing being might envy that, the fragile, fleeting wonder of not knowing. So as you drift closer to sleep, take comfort in uncertainty. It's not an absence of truth, it's the space where truth unfolds. The unknown is not your enemy. It's the invitation that keeps you moving, keeps you awake to the mystery of being. But if knowing everything brings its own kind of emptiness, what then of meaning itself? If all truths could be revealed, could the question, why, ever truly be answered? That's where we turn next, to the gentle riddle that sits at the center of every philosophy, every prayer, every dream. The question of meaning. Picture yourself walking through a quiet city at night. The streets are nearly empty, the air cool and steady. Streetlights hum softly, throwing pools of gold onto the pavement. You pass by dark windows, sleeping houses, the distant rhythm of life continuing unseen. Everything feels calm, almost suspended. And in that stillness, the question begins to rise, as it always does when the world grows quiet. What does it all mean? This is the question of meaning, not just a paradox, but a threshold. Because the very act of asking it changes the way you experience life. Meaning isn't something that waits for you, hidden behind a door. It's something that flickers into existence the moment you begin to search for it. Every culture, every generation has tried to answer this question through religion, philosophy, art, science. Some say meaning is given by a higher power, woven into the fabric of creation. Others believe we invent it, shaping it moment by moment through our choices and values. But perhaps both can be true at once, that the universe provides the canvas and we bring the color. Consider how fleeting meaning can feel. One day you wake with purpose, everything clear, every task significant. Next, the same world feels dull, the same goals hollow. Meaning shifts like light on water, impossible to hold, yet impossible to live without. Think about the simple things that give your life shape. A conversation that lingers, a small kindness, the laughter that arrives for no reason. These moments seem trivial, but when you look back, they form the constellations of your life, quiet anchors of significance. The great paradox of meaning is that it's rarely found in the grand or eternal, but in the fleeting and ordinary. Philosophers like Camus and Kierkegaard called this the absurd, the tension between our deep hunger for meaning and the universe's silence. We look for purpose in a cosmos that doesn't speak. Yet even in that silence, something beautiful happens. We begin to create our own answers. We make art, build connections, tell stories, love one another, as if to say, even if meaning isn't given, we will give it ourselves. Meaning, then, isn't a fixed destination, it's a verb, a continuous act. You mean your life into being, the way a musician pulls melody out of silence. You craft purpose not because the universe demands it, but because the heart does. And perhaps that's the gentle wisdom of this paradox. You don't need to find meaning before you live. You live, and meaning follows like footprints appearing behind you as you walk. So as you rest tonight, release the need to answer the question fully. Let it remain open, like a window letting in soft night air. You don't need to know what it all means to appreciate that it does. Life itself, breathing, feeling, wondering, might be the meaning you've been looking for. And if meaning itself is so fluid, if it bends and reforms with every heartbeat, what happens when the very emotion we chase as life's purpose begins to slip away the moment we pursue it too tightly? That is the quiet contradiction waiting in our next chapter. The happiness paradox. Picture yourself sitting by a window on a warm afternoon. Sunlight spills across the floor, painting soft gold over everything it touches. The air feels still, almost suspended. For a moment you notice that you're happy, or at least close to it. But the instant you try to hold on to that feeling, to name it, to make it last, something shifts. The moment tightens. The ease fades. And you find yourself wondering, why does happiness slip away the second I try to keep it? This is the happiness paradox, the quiet contradiction that the more we chase happiness, the further it seems to move from reach. It begins as something innocent. We plan, we hope, we strive, thinking that joy lies at the end of the next achievement, the next milestone, the next day that finally goes right. We tell ourselves, once I get there, once I fix this, once everything aligns, then I'll be happy. But happiness rarely works like that. The pursuit itself becomes the barrier. The harder you grasp, the faster it dissolves, like trying to hold sunlight in your hand. Philosophers and psychologists have long noticed this strange loop. When happiness becomes the goal, every experience turns into a test. Am I happy yet? Is this good enough? That quiet evaluation pulls us out of the moment where joy naturally lives. The measuring mind replaces the feeling mind. The present becomes performance. John Stuart Mill once wrote, "Those only are happy who have their minds fixed on some object other than their own happiness." He was right. The happiest moments often arrive unannounced when you're absorbed in a conversation, a song, a piece of work, or a laugh that surprises you. Happiness, it turns out, is not a place you reach, but a side effect of living fully. Think about the last time you felt at peace. Maybe you were walking under trees, or lost in a story, or cooking something simple. You weren't trying to be happy, you were simply being. The moment was enough. The paradox reminds us that happiness is not an outcome. It's a byproduct, the echo of alignment between what you value and what you do. And yet there's another layer. Sometimes, even when everything looks right, happiness still feels distant. You have what you wanted, but not the feeling you imagined. That's because happiness isn't static, it breathes. It needs contrast to exist. Without sadness, joy has no edges. Without effort, contentment has no meaning. The ancients understood this. The Stoics taught that peace lies not in constant pleasure, but in equanimity, the calm acceptance of both joy and sorrow as parts of a larger whole. Happiness, then, is not the absence of discomfort, but the grace to move through it without losing your center. So tonight, instead of reaching for happiness, let it reach for you. Stop chasing it like a destination and start noticing where it already lives, in breath, in rest, in stillness. Happiness hides in ordinary things, the hum of the night, the weight of a blanket, the rhythm of your pulse. Because the moment you stop demanding happiness, it begins to settle beside you, quiet, patient, unforced. And if happiness is something that only appears when we stop grasping, what about the mind that chases it? The mirror of thoughts that reflects everything we see, but can't always see itself. That brings us to our next quiet puzzle. The mirror of the mind. Close your eyes for a moment. Picture a still lake at dawn, the surface so calm it perfectly reflects the trees, the sky, the faint shimmer of morning light. Now imagine tossing a single pebble into that lake. Ripples spread outward, distorting everything. The reflection breaks. The image shivers, and for a while the lake forgets how to be still. That lake is your mind. And this is the mirror of the mind paradox. The strange truth that the mind which seeks clarity is often the very thing that disturbs it. You've felt this before. The harder you try to stop thinking, the louder your thoughts become. The more you chase peace, the further it slips. Try to force your mind into silence, and it fights back with noise, like telling waves to stop being waves. Philosophers and mystics have wrestled with this paradox for centuries. In Buddhist thought, the mind is described as a mirror that collects dust. The dust is our thoughts, emotions, and desires, the endless chatter that clouds perception. We polish and scrub, hoping to make it shine again. But sometimes, all that effort only scatters more dust into the air. The paradox lies in effort itself. The more you try to quiet the mind, the more you affirm that it isn't quiet. True stillness doesn't come from suppression, it comes from gentle observation. When you stop fighting the ripples, the lake settles on its own. Consider meditation. At first it feels impossible, thoughts keep intruding, the body fidgets, time stretches. But slowly, as you stop struggling and simply notice the movement of your mind, something shifts. Thoughts still come, but they no longer pull you. The mirror doesn't become empty, it becomes transparent. You begin to see through it, not into it. This is the subtle wisdom behind the paradox. Awareness isn't something you create, it's what's left when you stop trying. The mind doesn't need to be perfect to reflect reality. It just needs to stop chasing its own reflection. In daily life, this paradox plays out everywhere. You overthink conversations that are already over. You analyze feelings that were meant to be felt. You try to control outcomes that were never in your hands. And in doing so, the mirror trembles again. But here's the beauty: clarity isn't something you achieve. It's something that returns when you let go. Like mud sinking naturally to the bottom of the lake, peace returns when we stop stirring it. So as you drift toward sleep tonight, imagine your thoughts as gentle ripples fatting into still water. Let every worry sink, every noise dissolve. You don't have to control the mind to quiet it. You just have to stop identifying with the ripples and remember you are the lake. And if the mirror of your mind can both reveal and distort reality, what happens when silence itself becomes a teacher? When the absence of words says more than the words ever could? That's the puzzle waiting in our next reflection. The silence paradox. Picture yourself lying in a dark, quiet room. No music, no voices, no background hum of machines, just silence. At first it feels peaceful, a rare calm in a world filled with noise. But then, as the seconds stretch, something strange happens. You begin to hear your own heartbeat, the faint whoosh of your breath, maybe even the distant pulse of blood moving through your ears. The quiet, instead of soothing you, begins to feel deafening. This is the silence paradox. The more we seek absolute silence, the more we start to hear the things within us. It's an idea that seems simple but grows stranger the longer you sit with it. We often long for quiet, a break from the endless notifications, the traffic, the chatter, the constant demand for our attention. But when true silence arrives, it reveals something uncomfortable. It doesn't erase noise, it replaces it with the sound of our own being. In 1951, sound engineer John Cage stepped into an anechoic chamber, a room designed to absorb all echoes, all outside sound. He expected perfect silence. Instead, he heard two distinct tones, one high, one low. Later, scientists explained that one was the sound of his nervous system, the other his own blood circulating. Even in the quietest space ever built, Cage couldn't escape sound. The silence had turned inward. That moment changed how he and the world thought about silence. He realized silence isn't the absence of sound, but the presence of everything we normally ignore. It's not emptiness, it's revelation. Think about the last time you sat quietly, really quietly. No phone, no music, no background distraction. What rose up? Thoughts, memories, unfinished feelings. Silence, it seems, is not peaceful by default. It's a mirror that reflects the noise inside us. This paradox shows up everywhere in modern life. We fill every pause with something, a scroll through our feed, a podcast, a song, not just to be entertained, but to avoid meeting ourselves in the stillness. The external noise keeps us from hearing the internal one. Yet the deeper irony is this: the only way to truly quiet the mind is to go through the noise, not around it. Silence feels loud at first because it reveals the backlog of everything we've avoided, our worries, our regrets, our unfinished sentences. But if we stay with it, if we don't run, something miraculous happens. The chaos begins to settle. The inner sounds fade into a deeper rhythm, and the silence that once felt suffocating starts to feel alive. Philosophers and mystics have long known this. They retreat into caves, deserts, monasteries not to escape the world but to hear it more clearly. To discover that beneath all sound, even beneath the hum of thought, there's a quieter current, a kind of still awareness that doesn't need to speak at all. Maybe that's what true silence is, not the absence of noise, but the awareness that holds all of it without resistance. The silence behind the sound, the pause between heartbeats, the space between breaths. But the paradox remains. The more we try to grasp silence, the more elusive it becomes. You can't force quiet. The effort itself becomes another kind of noise. Silence arrives only when you stop demanding it, when you surrender, when you listen instead of trying to control. So tonight, as you rest, don't chase silence. Let it find you. Listen not just to the absence of sound, but to the subtle presence that lies beneath it, the murmur of life still unfolding in every cell, every inhale, every thought gently passing through. The universe hums even in stillness. The silence you seek isn't out there. It's within you, vast, infinite, waiting to be heard. And if silence itself can turn out to be so full, so alive, what about the passage of time? Could it be that what feels like an ending is just another kind of return? That's the mystery waiting in our next paradox. The long return. Imagine walking through a forest path at dusk. The light fades and the world softens into silhouettes. Every sound feels amplified, the crunch of leaves beneath your feet, the sigh of wind through branches, the faint pulse of your own heartbeat. You keep walking, half sure you're going somewhere new until something familiar catches your eye. A crooked tree, a cluster of stones. You've been here before. This is the long return, the paradox of realizing that even as we move forward, we often end up right where we began. We tend to imagine life as a straight line, birth to growth to end, always pushing towards something ahead. But look closely, and you'll notice how much of it loops. The lessons you thought you'd mastered return in new disguises. The emotions you believed you'd outgrown come back softer, wiser. The faces change, but the patterns hum the same refrain. The universe itself seems to move this way in spirals, not lines. Galaxies turn endlessly, seasonal cycle. The moon waxes, wanes, and waxes again. Even your breath, inhale, exhale, carries the rhythm of return. Every ending hides a beginning. Every goodbye holds a quiet promise of another hello. The long return is both comforting and haunting. It reminds you that nothing is ever lost, but also that true escape might be impossible. The self you try to outrun, your doubts, your patterns, your old fears, often waits for you patiently at the next turn, disguised as something new. And yet this circularity is not punishment, it's an invitation. Each return gives you the chance to meet the same moment with greater awareness, to recognize that while the pattern repeats, you do not. The person walking this loop is never exactly the same as before. Think about your dreams, how often they return to the same places, faces, themes. A school you haven't seen in years. A road that never quite ends. Your subconscious, like the universe, speaks in cycles. It's trying to complete something, to bring closure not by ending but by understanding. Even time, which we treat as a relentless arrow, may not be what it seems. Some physicists suggest the past and future coexist, two halves of a single whole. To move forward is not to leave something behind, but to spiral around it, seeing it from a higher view each time. So perhaps the paradox isn't that life circles back. It's that we call it a circle when it's really a spiral. You return, yes, but never to the same place, never as the same person. In this way, the long return is a kind of grace. It means nothing is wasted. Every heartbreak, every unfinished chapter, every detour becomes part of a larger loop of becoming. Tonight, as you drift between waking and dreaming, notice how the rhythm of your breath mirrors this truth, returning always to the start, yet never the same breath twice. The body remembers the pattern, but the experience renews itself each time. Maybe that's what eternity truly is, not endless time, but endless renewal. And if life itself keeps looping back in gentle spirals, what happens when even those cycles reach their end? When endings aren't what they seem, and closure becomes another kind of beginning? That's the mystery waiting in our next chapter. The paradox of endings. There's a quiet heaviness that comes with endings. A book's final page, a sunset that fades too quickly. A conversation that drifts into silence, not because there's nothing left to say, but because everything that mattered has already been said. We're taught to see endings as moments of closure, neat, conclusive, final. Yet the deeper you look, the more fragile that illusion becomes. This is the paradox of endings, the strange truth that nothing ever truly ends, it only changes form. Think of fire. It burns bright, consumes its fuel, and then disappears. But the energy doesn't vanish, it becomes warmth in the air, light in the night, memory in your mind. What seems like an ending is simply a transformation, a quiet continuation in another shape. In your own life, endings often feel like small deaths, a relationship fading, a chapter closing, a dream dissolving into something unrecognizable. But look closer, and you'll see the pattern that threads through every goodbye. Something always survives. a habit of thought, a lesson, a tenderness that lingers like the afterglow of sunset. Even death, the greatest ending of all, resists simplicity. Stars die, and from their ashes new stars are born. Forests burn, and from the soil rise the next generation of green. You shed versions of yourself all the time, the child you were, the identities you've outgrown, and yet you remain. Perhaps endings hurt not because they destroy, but because they reveal how attached we are to one form of beauty, afraid to see what it might become next. We cling to permanence in a world made entirely of change. But the paradox is this: if nothing ever ended, nothing could begin. The beauty of dawn exists only because night makes room for it. Growth is possible only because the old eventually yields to the new. Think of sleep itself. Every night you surrender to a kind of ending, a temporary death of the waking self. Yet from that surrender comes renewal, memory consolidation, healing. You close your eyes not to escape life, but to let it continue in another rhythm. The paradox of endings invites you to soften your resistance, to understand that closure is the opposite of continuation. It's part of the same flow. The tide doesn't grieve when it recedes. It knows it will rise again. So tonight, if you find yourself mourning what's gone, a moment, a person, a past version of yourself, let the grief breathe. Let it move through you. Because every ending carries within it the quiet hum of a new beginning, waiting for space to unfold. And maybe, as you drift toward sleep, you can begin to see endings not as doors closing, but as doorways turning, thresholds between what was and what's next. Because even when something ends, the story does not. It simply finds another way to be told. And speaking of time's movement, endings and beginnings intertwining, what happens when time itself becomes uncertain? When moments refuse to stay still, looping and bending in impossible ways? That's the mystery waiting in our next chapter. The time paradox. Time is the river we all drift upon, constant, invisible, unstoppable. You can't hold it, can't see it, yet it defines everything you are. Every heartbeat, every thought, every story unfolds upon its current. But here's the mystery: time doesn't always behave the way it seems. Sometimes it slows down when you're falling in love. Sometimes it disappears when you're lost in a dream. And in the blink of an eye, entire years can vanish behind you like mist. This is the time paradox, the strange contradiction that time feels both infinite and fleeting, constant and elastic, always moving forward yet somehow looping through memory and emotion. Think about this. Scientists tell us that time is relative. Einstein showed that the faster you move, the slower time flows for you. Clocks on satellites tick differently than clocks on Earth, and deep inside a black hole, time stretches until it nearly stops. But you don't need physics to experience relativity. You live it every day. An hour spent in joy feels like minutes. A minute spent in pain can feel like forever. Time bends under the weight of emotion. It's not a single, steady march but a living thing, breathing with the rhythm of your heart. Now consider memory, the mind's way of stitching the past to the present. You don't remember time as it happened. You remember fragments, frames, flashes of feeling. Your past isn't behind you, not really. It lives here, in the neural patterns firing right now. Every memory you revisit brings the past into the present again, collapsing the distance between then and now. And the future, it's not waiting somewhere ahead. It's already forming quietly from the choices you make in this moment. In that sense, time isn't a line, it's a loop, a spiral, a woven fabric constantly folding over itself. But the paradox deepens. To exist inside time is to be carried by it, yet the more you try to grasp it, the more it slips away. You can measure hours, schedule days, track your progress in months and years, but can you ever really feel time itself? Or only its echoes, change, decay, memory, anticipation? Perhaps time isn't something passing through you, but something you create by noticing change. Without awareness, there is no time. The clock doesn't move until you look at it. The moment doesn't become past until you mark it with attention. So what does it mean to lose time? Maybe nothing is truly lost. Maybe it only changes form just like everything else. The laughter that once filled a room still lives in the pattern of neurons that light up when you remember. The love you gave still echoes in someone else's life, shaping choices you'll never see. Time in its paradox isn't a thief. It's an artist, constantly transforming experience into memory and memory into meaning. As you lie here tonight, think of time not as a river carrying you away, but as an ocean surrounding you, vast, deep, and full of hidden currents. You are not drifting helplessly. You are part of its rhythm, part of the same timeless dance that stars, atoms, and dreams all follow. So let time dissolve for now. Let clocks fade. Let the future and past blur into one soft, endless present, the still point where rest begins. Because perhaps, in the quiet between one heartbeat and the next, you'll discover the truth of the time paradox. That eternity isn't beyond you. It's within you. And as time folds softly around you, another question stirs. If time itself can warp and shift, what about the very mind that perceives it? What if consciousness isn't something you have, but something the universe itself is? That's the wonder waiting in our next paradox. The consciousness paradox. Close your eyes for a moment and notice the space behind your thoughts, that silent watcher who observes everything without saying a word. Who is that? Is it you, the same you who remembers childhood, who plans tomorrow, who listens right now? Or is it something else entirely, something deeper that merely borrows your body, your name, your story for a while? This is the consciousness paradox, the riddle of awareness itself. The fact that you can think about thinking, see yourself seeing, feel yourself feeling. It's the one mystery that refuses to be stepped outside of because whatever looks is the thing being studied. You can dissect a brain, trace its neurons, measure electric pulses, but nowhere inside will you find the color red, the taste of rain, or the warmth of love. You can map every region that lights up during emotion or memory, yet the experience itself, the raw feeling of being, stays invisible, untouched by instruments. Philosophers call this the hard problem of consciousness. How can physical matter give rise to subjective experience? How can atoms and chemistry produce the glow of self-awareness, the quiet I am that sits behind every thought? Science tells us the brain generates the mind. But what if it's the other way around? What if consciousness is the ocean and your brain is merely a wave within it? A pattern that rises, forms, and dissolves, but never truly leaves the sea. When you dream, consciousness creates worlds without a single atom changing in reality. You walk, run, speak, feel terror or joy, all within the theater of awareness itself. When you wake, the dream vanishes, but the awareness that dreamed it remains. So which one was real, the dream or the dreamer? Now here, where the paradox deepens, you are both the observer and the observed. You can watch your thoughts like clouds drifting by, yet the watcher is also part of the same sky. You are both the thinker and the awareness, noticing the thinking. You can never fully step outside yourself to see the whole picture, because the one who's trying to look is part of the picture. Meditation traditions have pointed to this for centuries. They whisper that the self you believe in, your name, your story, your personality, is a kind of mirage. Useful, yes. Beautiful, yes, but temporary. Beneath it lies something wordless, boundless, and ancient, consciousness itself, watching through countless eyes, dreaming through countless lives. Imagine consciousness as light passing through stained glass. Each pane gives it color and form. This one becomes you, that one becomes someone else. But the light behind them all is the same. When one form breaks, the light doesn't die. It simply finds another shape through which to shine. If that's true, then death is not an ending, it's a return. A folding back of awareness into the infinite fabric it came from. But even if you don't believe in any grand cosmic oneness, the paradox still holds power. Because consciousness, however it arises, is the only thing that makes your world exist for you. Without it, there are no stars, no sounds, no memories, no love. The universe may be vast and cold, but through you, it becomes known. So as you lie here, drifting between wakefulness and sleep, consider this. The same consciousness that watches your thoughts now will soon weave them into dreams. It never truly stops. It simply shifts form, from daylight awareness to the soft glow of imagination. And maybe that's the secret of this paradox, that you are not in consciousness. You are consciousness. The silent witness, the endless dreamer, forever peering out through eyes that change but never close for good. Let that awareness expand gently tonight, not to think, not to grasp, but to rest in itself. You are the sky, not the weather. You are the watcher, not the wave. And as the edges of thought blur, another question rises. If consciousness can hold infinite worlds within, what happens when it meets the vastness of nothing, the empty space that gives form to everything? That's the quiet riddle waiting in our next reflection. The Emptiness Paradox. There is a strange comfort in silence, in the spaces between sound, in the pause between heartbeats. You can feel it now, can't you? That faint stillness underneath everything. It isn't absence. It's something else. A quiet fullness that holds all things together. This is the Emptiness Paradox, the realization that what we call nothing might actually be everything. Consider the night sky. At first glance, it looks like a canvas of infinite blackness punctured by a few points of light. Yet scientists tell us that this emptiness is anything but empty. It seethes with invisible particles popping in and out of existence, with quantum foam, with energy fields dancing just beyond perception. The vacuum of space is alive, humming with potential. The same is true within you. Your body feels solid, but it's mostly empty space, atoms separated by vast distances at the subatomic scale. You are a constellation of particles held together by invisible forces, a structure of emptiness pretending to be form. And yet, from this near-nothingness, thought, emotion, love, and dreams arise. Here lies the paradox. Everything that exists is made mostly of what doesn't. Philosophers and mystics have circled this truth for centuries. The Buddhist Heart Sutra whispers, "Form is emptiness. Emptiness is form." The physicist echoes the same in a different language, that matter and void are two sides of one equation. Existence depends not on what is, but on the space that allows it to be. Think about music. What makes a melody beautiful is not just the notes, but the pauses between them. The silence shapes the sound. The same is true of words. Meaning is born from the gaps that give rhythm and sense. Without emptiness, everything would collapse into noise, into blur, into undifferentiated chaos. Even emotion follows this pattern. Joy feels luminous because it emerges from the dim valley of stillness. Love feels vast because it opens space around the heart. Without contrast, without the quiet, the pause, the absence, even light would lose its brilliance. But we humans fear emptiness. We fill silence with chatter, calendars with tasks, screens with endless motion, as if to confront the void is to risk vanishing into it. Yet every night when you close your eyes and let sleep take you, you surrender to that void willingly. You dissolve into nothing, only to awaken restored. The emptiness you fear is also what heals you. Pause for a moment and notice the air entering your lungs. Breath itself is a lesson in emptiness. The inhale creates fullness, but the exhale, the letting go, is what makes room for life to continue. To hold forever would suffocate. Release creates rhythm. In this way, emptiness isn't a lack, it's an invitation. It's space for creation. Just as a painter needs the blank canvas, and a composer needs silence, life itself needs the room to unfold. The tree grows not into the soil, but into the space above it. The mind expands only when it stops clinging. You are not diminished by emptiness. You are defined by it. The spaces in your life, the pauses, the quiet mornings, the moments of waiting, are not wasted. They are the architecture of meaning. As you rest now, let yourself dissolve gently into that sacred nothingness. Imagine the thoughts softening, dissolving like ink in water. The noise of the day fades until only awareness remains, wide, open, and infinite. Perhaps the paradox of emptiness is that it isn't empty at all. It's the cradle of all that can exist. Without it, there would be no stars, no breath, no dreams. Let your mind rest in that vast quiet tonight, not trying to fill it, not fearing its size, just floating within it as galaxies float in space, as breath floats in stillness. And as you drift further, another paradox begins to shimmer at the edges of awareness. If everything is empty, then what makes anything real at all? What anchors our experience when everything dissolves into uncertainty? That question leads us to the next riddle, waiting in the dark. The reality paradox. Picture yourself standing before a mirror, watching your reflection move perfectly in sync. Every blink, every breath, every tilt of the head. You know it isn't you, yet it mimics your every move with flawless precision. The reflection feels real, but it is. Now imagine stepping outside that mirror. What if this world, too, is just another reflection? What if what you call reality is only an image cast by something deeper, something unseen? This is the reality paradox, the haunting realization that everything you experience might be both real and an illusion at the same time. Consider a dream. When you're inside it, it feels utterly convincing. You can see, touch, run, fear, and love within it. Only when you awaken do you realize it was all happening within your mind. But how can you be sure that this, right now, isn't another dream? A longer, more consistent one. Philosophers and scientists have wrestled with this question for centuries. Descartes wondered if a clever demon could deceive him into believing in a false world. Modern physicists propose simulation theories, suggesting that the universe might be an incredibly advanced illusion, a cosmic computer rendering everything you see. But let's step away from speculation and notice something simpler. Even if reality is real, you never experience it directly. What you call seeing is your brain interpreting light. What you call hearing is your brain translating vibrations in the air. What you call knowing is your mind stitching together fragments into a seamless story. You never touch the world itself. You touch the filtered version your brain allows you to perceive. So if everything you know is mediated through perception, can you ever be certain what's truly out there? Or are you only ever meeting your own mind, reflected back through sensation and memory? The paradox deepens when you consider how fragile this construct can be. A single dream can make your heart race. A memory can bring tears to your eyes. A virtual world can make your palms sweat with fear. The body reacts as though illusion and truth were one and the same. Perhaps, then, reality isn't defined by what's objectively real, but by what's experientially felt. The emotion of fear, the taste of love, the ache of longing, these things are real because they are experienced. Whether they occur in a dream, in a thought, or in the physical world might not matter as much as we think. It's possible that reality isn't a fixed stage but a dance between mind and matter, a co-creation. The world responds to how we see it. Focus on chaos and chaos grows sharper. Focus on beauty and suddenly the world softens. The observer doesn't just witness reality, the observer participates in shaping it. So what is truly real? The solid ground beneath your feet, or the awareness of noticing the ground? Maybe the deepest truth of this paradox is that both are necessary. Reality needs the dreamer, and the dreamer needs something to dream of. The world may be an illusion, but it's an illusion that feels, and perhaps that's what makes it real enough. As you prepare for rest, let the edges of your reality blur. The sounds fade, the walls dissolve, and the boundary between dream and waking grows soft. Just as in the mirror, what's reflected may not be you, but it's still a part of you. Perhaps what's real is not the image, but the awareness behind it, the quiet observer who watches both dream and daylight unfold, knowing both are part of the same mystery. And if even reality itself can blur with illusion, what happens to the stories we tell about the past, the ones that shape who we think we are? That's where our next paradox begins. The memory paradox. Close your eyes for a moment and try to remember your very first memory. Maybe it's a flicker, a room filled with light, a scent of something familiar, a voice calling your name. But as you focus on it, the image shifts, doesn't it? You're not sure whether you're recalling the moment or simply recalling the last time you remembered it. This is the memory paradox, the unsettling realization that every time we remember something, we're not retrieving the original experience, but rewriting it. Memory feels like a photograph, still, reliable, permanent. But in truth, it's more like a painting, altered each time we revisit it, colors changing subtly with every brushstroke. Scientists have confirmed this. Recalling a memory destabilizes it. In the moment you bring it back, it becomes pliable, and when you store it again, it may not be exactly the same. So what then is your past made of? If your memories are constantly rewritten, if each recollection reshapes what you believe happened, then who are you really? The person who lived those moments, or the one continually rewriting them? Imagine holding an old photograph. You're sure it's from a happy day, maybe a birthday, a picnic, a celebration. But now, with years of perspective, new emotions surface. You notice the way someone looked away from the camera, the tension in a smile. The same image tells a different story. The memory has changed, not because the moment did, but because you did. Every version of you, the child, the teenager, the adult you are now, remembers life differently. Each one lives inside a slightly altered story. And that means your past isn't something fixed behind you. It's something alive, shifting, breathing through the mind that recalls it. Even collective memory, the stories we share as families, as societies, works this way. Ask three siblings about the same childhood moment, and you'll hear three entirely different truths. History itself, as it's told, is more interpretation than record. What survives is not the event, but the meaning we gave it. Here lies the paradox. Memory is both the foundation of identity and the most unreliable narrator we have. It defines who we are, yet it constantly edits the script. Perhaps that's why nostalgia feels so powerful and so deceptive. We long for simpler times, not because they were simpler, but because our minds have softened their edges. Memory turns pain into poetry, chaos into narrative, confusion into meaning. In remembering, we heal, but we also distort. And yet maybe that's okay. Maybe memory's fragility isn't a flaw, but a mercy. It allows us to forgive, to reinterpret, to reshape our pain into wisdom. It lets us turn loss into gratitude, regret into growth, and fleeting moments into stories that make sense of it all. So tonight, as you drift toward sleep, consider this. Your past isn't a fixed landscape frozen in time. It's a living reflection that changes as you do. You're not the sum of what happened, you're the storyteller continually giving it meaning. Perhaps the real purpose of memory isn't to preserve the past perfectly, but to help you keep becoming. And if our recollections of truth can bend so easily, what about truth itself? What if even reality's most sacred concept, truth, is not as stable as we think? That's where the next paradox begins. The truth paradox. Picture yourself standing in front of two mirrors facing each other. Between them, your reflection repeats endlessly, image within image, truth within truth, each one slightly dimmer, slightly distorted, stretching into infinity. This is the truth paradox, the strange realization that truth, which we treat as absolute, might itself be relative, layered, or even self-contradictory. We grow up believing truth is simple, a thing either is or is. But the closer we look in science, philosophy, even daily life, the more we see that truth bends with perspective. What's true in one context might dissolve in another. Take a simple example, a stick half submerged in water. To your eyes, it bends sharply where it enters the surface. Yet lift it out and you see it was never bent at all. The truth didn't change, your viewpoint did. Now stretch that further. Two people witness the same event. One remembers it as an act of kindness, the other a betrayal. Whose truth is real? Both, neither. Each mind filters the world through its own lens of experience, emotion, bias, and memory. The philosopher Niels Bohr once said, "The opposite of a true statement is a false statement, but the opposite of a profound truth may well be another profound truth." That's the essence of the paradox. Some truths coexist even when they seem to contradict each other. Think about light. Physics tells us it behaves both as a wave and as a particle, two mutually exclusive realities, both provably true. The universe itself refuses to pick sides. Or consider morality. One culture's act of virtue might be another's taboo. Truth changes with time, geography, even collective mood. Yesterday's heresy becomes tomorrow's wisdom. We live in an age flooded with information, each voice proclaiming its version of truth. Algorithms amplify belief until every echo chamber feels like a cathedral. And yet step outside any one of them, and you find another, equally certain, equally convincing. The more we chase ultimate truth, the more it seems to fragment. Like trying to grasp light itself, the moment you close your fist, it slips through your fingers. But maybe the lesson here isn't that truth is meaningless, but that it's multidimensional. A diamond doesn't stop being real just because it has many facets. Each reflection, each angle, reveals something different, and only by turning it can you see the whole. Perhaps truth isn't a single mountain peak to conquer, but a vast landscape to explore, one where humility becomes more valuable than certainty. Because when you stop insisting on being right, you make space to truly see. So as you let your mind soften tonight, release the need for sharp definitions. Let truth shimmer like moonlight on water, always moving, always reflecting something new, depending on where you stand. And if truth itself can be fluid, what happens when we stretch beyond its boundaries? When we look not at what's real, but at what has no end? That's where the next mystery begins to unfold. The Infinity Paradox. Picture yourself standing at the edge of a vast desert. No horizon, no border, just endless golden sand stretching beyond what your eyes can hold. You take a step forward and it doesn't end. Another step and still it goes on. This is the Infinity Paradox, the mind-bending realization that something can be endless, yet still contained. Infinity feels like a number, something too large to count. But mathematicians tell us there isn't just one infinity, there are many, and some infinities are larger than others. Think about that for a moment. Something already endless can still be outdone. Imagine counting every whole number 1, 2, 3, 4 forever. That's infinity. Now imagine counting every number between 1 and 2, 1.1, 1.11, 1.111, and on, endlessly filling the space between two finite points. There are infinitely many numbers between 1 and 2, more than there are in the entire sequence of whole numbers. Infinity exists within boundaries. Limitlessness can hide within limits. It's unsettling, isn't it? That you could spend eternity exploring something that fits between your fingertips. That the infinite can be tucked neatly inside the finite. But this isn't just math, it's life. You live every day as a finite being, a heartbeat that began and will someday stop. And yet within you, infinite thoughts flicker. Endless memories, endless possibilities, endless stories of who you could become. You hold universes inside you, each one unfolding in the space between a breath and a dream. Infinity shows up in moments, too. A single second of love can stretch longer in memory than entire years of time. A conversation can last only minutes, but echo in your mind for decades. Perhaps infinity doesn't live in length, but in depth. When you stare at the stars, remember that the light reaching you left its source millions of years ago. You are seeing ghosts of the past, still burning in the present. The cosmos doesn't rush, it stretches endlessly in all directions, both outward and inward. So what is infinity, really? A number, a concept? Or is it simply the space where human understanding dissolves, where language stops and wonder begins? The infinity paradox whispers that the endless isn't out there, it's already here. In thought, in feeling, in being. The infinite is what escapes you, it's what includes you. So as you rest tonight, imagine yourself as part of something that has no edge, no end. You are not standing in the universe, you are the universe, folded into itself, exploring its own infinity through your eyes. And if even infinity can be contained within something so small, what does that say about choice, that fragile illusion of control we hold so tightly? Our next paradox invites you to step into that mystery. The choice paradox. Picture yourself standing before two doors. Both lead somewhere new, somewhere different, and you can only choose one. Your hand hovers in hesitation. You wonder which path will make you happier, wiser, more fulfilled. But as you wait, something strange begins to happen. The longer you hesitate, the heavier the choice becomes. This is the choice paradox, the unsettling truth that more freedom doesn't always make us freer. Sometimes, too many options imprison us in our own indecision. Modern life is a cathedral of choices. Open your phone, hundreds of shows, dozens of playlists, countless things to buy, people to meet, lives to follow. And yet beneath this abundance, there's a quiet exhaustion. The mind, faced with infinite possibility, freezes. Psychologists call it the paradox of choice. The more options we have, the harder it becomes to choose, and the less satisfied we feel once we do. Because every yes becomes 100 no's. Every decision carries the ghost of the lives we didn't live. Think of the simple act of scrolling through a streaming app. You spend 15 minutes searching, wanting the perfect movie. When you finally pick one, part of you can't stop wondering, was there a better choice? You're watching, but half of your attention remains trapped in the unchosen. It's not just entertainment, it's everything. Careers, relationships, even small daily decisions. You stand at the crossroads of infinite possibilities, but freedom without direction can feel like a burden. Choice, you realize, is not just about opportunity, it's about loss. Every chosen path means others disappear. Every step forward means leaving something behind. But here lies the beauty buried in the paradox. Choice becomes lighter when guided by meaning. When you know what you stand for, the infinite narrows into alignment. You stop searching for the best and start choosing what's true. Maybe happiness isn't about keeping every door open. It's about walking fully through one and closing it gently behind you. Because peace doesn't come from limitless options, it comes from committed direction. As you drift tonight, think about how much energy you spend fearing the wrong choice. What if the real mistake isn't choosing wrong, but never choosing at all? You are allowed to trust your steps. You are allowed to walk forward without knowing everything ahead. The paradox of choice softens when you understand this. Meaning doesn't wait behind one perfect door. It grows wherever you decide to stay. And when the noise of all these choices quiets, when movement stills and the world goes silent, another paradox emerges, one that rests not in doing but in being. That's where we end our journey. The paradox of stillness. Picture a lake at dawn. The surface is perfectly still, a flawless mirror of sky and light. Yet beneath that stillness, life hums, fish drift through the shadows, water ripples invisibly with gentle currents, and the earth itself moves in quiet rhythms. Stillness, it turns out, is never truly still. This is the paradox of stillness, the realization that silence, rest, and inaction are often the most dynamic states of all. When nothing seems to be happening, everything is preparing to happen. Think about breathing. You inhale movement, you exhale release. But in the tiny pause between, there's stillness. That pause isn't empty, it's full of transition. It's where balance lives. In the same way, your life holds countless pauses, moments between decisions, between conversations, between the noise of one thought and the next. We often rush to fill them, fearing the quiet. But those pauses are where renewal begins. Modern life glorifies motion, productivity, constant becoming. We are taught that stillness equals stagnation, that to stop is to fall behind. But the truth is gentler, sometimes. Pausing is the most courageous act of movement there is. Consider nature's own rhythm. The tree appears still in winter, its branches bare and lifeless. Yet beneath the frozen soil, roots grow deeper unseen. Energy gathers quietly for the green explosion of spring. Stillness, in this sense, isn't absence, it's incubation. The same is true for you. Every moment of genuine stillness is a seedbed for transformation. Think of the last time you sat quietly without reaching for your phone, without trying to fill the air with noise. At first, the silence might have felt uncomfortable, the mind scrambling for distraction. But stay long enough and something subtle unfolds. Thoughts soften, breathing slows, awareness deepens. In stillness, you don't escape life, you meet it. Even sleep, the nightly surrender, is the body's most profound act of stillness, and yet, in that silence, billions of cells heal, memories form, dreams weave fragments of your waking life into meaning. Stillness restores what motion depletes. The paradox, then, is this: to move wisely, you must learn to stop. To grow stronger, you must rest. To hear truth, you must listen in the silence between sounds. What you mistake for nothingness is often the universe recalibrating itself within you. So tonight, as you lie there with eyes closed, imagine that quiet lake once more. Notice how, even in perfect calm, life stirs beneath the surface. You don't need to force clarity, it will rise naturally, like morning light spilling across the water. Let the breath slow, let thoughts drift without judgment, let stillness become not the absence of life but its softest expression. And as your awareness begins to fade, remember this: stillness isn't the end of motion, it's the rhythm's hidden half. The inhale needs the exhale, the sound needs the pause, the journey needs the rest. So rest now, deeply and completely. Because even in stillness, you are moving, quietly, beautifully, toward wholeness. The paradox of understanding. As we reach the end of this long, winding journey through 20 paradoxes, take a moment to notice what's changed within you. Perhaps your thoughts feel softer now, less rigid, more open. Perhaps you've realized that answers are not always destinations, but gentle resting points along an infinite road. Each paradox you've met tonight, from the simulation paradox to the paradox of stillness, has carried a quiet truth: that the universe is not made of straight lines but circles, that every certainty folds back into mystery. We chase clarity, yet find peace only when we surrender the need to know. Paradoxes are not meant to be solved, they are meant to be lived. They remind us that opposites can coexist, that doubt can live beside faith, movement within stillness, meaning within uncertainty. They whisper that the mind's greatest strength is not in control, but in curiosity. You've walked through thought experiments that bent logic, tested reality, and dissolved boundaries. But perhaps the most beautiful paradox of all is this: that by exploring the edges of confusion, you've found a deeper calm. By wandering through questions too large for words, you've arrived somewhere wordless, still, and utterly human. So let your mind rest here. Let all the ideas, images, and impossibilities fade like stars before dawn. You don't need to hold on to them, they've already done their work. They've stretched your understanding just enough to make space for wonder. As you drift toward sleep, remember, not every riddle demands a solution. Not every contradiction needs to be reconciled. And not every mystery exists to be solved. Some are simply meant to be felt, like the pulse of existence itself. Steady, uncertain, infinite. And maybe that's the greatest paradox of all. That in letting go of the need to understand, you finally begin to rest well. The questions will keep until morning.